Mason is having dinner with Jesse when his dog, Jack, suddenly starts whining. Jack senses something is wrong, and when Mason looks outside using his binoculars, he spots a team of 6 commandos heading toward them. Mason quickly puts on his coat, grabs his knife, and tells Jesse to hide in the bathroom and wait for him. Jack tries to follow, but Mason orders him to stay inside. As the commandos reach the shore, Mason cuts a rope. A rock rolls down the hill, dragging one of the commandos into the ocean. The soldiers spot him and open fire, but he manages to escape. The commandos climb up. Mason quietly sneaks up on one of them and attacks him with a lamp, pours kerosene over him, and sets him on fire using a flare gun. He then distracts another commando and kills him with his knife. Meanwhile, one of the commandos breaks into the house. As Jack lunges at him, the commando kills him. Soon after, the attacker enters the bathroom and finds Jesse. At the same time, another commando enters Mason's workshop, but Mason tracks him down and leaves him hanging on a hook. When another soldier spots him, Mason jumps at him, and the two engage in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Mason overpowers him and stabs him. Even then, the commando manages to shoot Mason, but Mason still finishes him without mercy. After dealing with all the commandos, Mason notices Jesse being dragged onto a boat. Who is Mason? Why did the commandos attack him and kidnap Jesse? To find out, let's go back to the beginning. Mason has been living in a lighthouse on an abandoned island for years with his dog. Jesse and her uncle bring him supplies every week, and she leaves a small gift for him each time. Mason always ignores her gifts. One day, they arrive with the supplies, and Jesse's uncle tells her to drop the crate and come back quickly, warning her about the worsening weather. But instead of listening, Jesse walks up to Mason's door and knocks. She asks him why he has never come down to greet them, even though they've been bringing him supplies for years. Mason warns her to stay away from him and ignores the gift as she tries to hand it over. By the time she heads back to the shore, the storm has already closed in, and her uncle shouts at her to hurry. As she tries to paddle back to the trawler, the storm hits hard. Mason's dog starts whining, and when he looks out, he sees Jesse struggling against the waves. He quickly rushes out and pushes his motorboat into the water. As he gets closer, he dives in and finds Jesse unconscious, her foot tangled in a fishing net. He spots her uncle too, but there's no time. He can only save her. Mason brings Jesse onto the boat and helps her regain consciousness. She wakes up later in the evening, and when she asks about her uncle, she learns the truth. He didn't make it. The trawler sank, and he was trapped inside. The next morning, Mason checks Jesse's foot and finds it swollen. Instead of being thankful, Jesse questions him. Why hasn't he informed the police or anyone about her and her uncle? She even warns him that her family will be looking for her. Hearing this, Mason reveals the truth. Her mother died 6 years ago. She never knew her father, and her uncle had been raising her ever since. So, in reality, she has no one else to look for her. As Mason leaves the room, Jesse quickly searches through his drawers and finds a knife. By the time he returns, she hides it under her pillow. That night, Jesse has a nightmare and wakes up frightened. When Mason comes closer to calm her, she points the knife at him. But instead of reacting, Mason gently helps her relax. He then says he understands her pain and shows her the right way to hold a knife. The next day, Mason feels relieved seeing Jesse and his dog getting along well. As they sit together, Jesse asks how he knew her uncle. Mason replies that they served together in the Royal Marines. When she tries to learn more about him, Mason stops her and doesn't even tell her his name. It's then that Jesse realizes the dog doesn't have a name, so she decides to call him Jack. Later, Mason checks her foot again and notices it has become infected. He leaves to get medical supplies, while Jesse stays behind, looking through his drawings. Mason arrives at a pharmacy, notices the security cameras, and carefully makes his way inside while avoiding them. Meanwhile, MI6 Chief Stephen is seen standing before a jury regarding a recent server hack. It is revealed that MI6 has been secretly breaching the privacy of British citizens, even tracking their voting patterns, to train an artificial intelligence system. The system is called Total Human Engagement Analytics, or THEA. Stephen tries to defend it, saying MI6 has prevented many major disasters with THEA's help. But the jury adjourns with a decision. The president and Stephen will be placed under investigation, and THEA will be dismantled. Afterward, Stephen meets the president, who decides to use him as a scapegoat. He plans to retire Stephen publicly, but continue using him from the shadows. Stephen agrees with the idea, and together they decide to appoint Robert as the new head of MI6 to keep everything under control. At the same time, Mason buys clothes for Jesse. As he steps outside, a girl's phone camera accidentally captures his face. The scene then shifts to THEA's mainframe, where Maddie flags Mason as a security threat and alerts Roberta. However, THEA mistakenly identifies Mason as Timur, labeling him as a terrorist. Roberta immediately orders Aziz to send the nearest assault team to eliminate him. Meanwhile, Mason returns and cleans Jesse's wound, giving her the new clothes. That night, they sit down for dinner, and the story cuts back to the moment when Mason took down the commandos. He spots the last surviving commando dragging Jesse toward a boat and shoots him down. Mason tells Jesse to wait. As he walks inside, he finds Jack dead and quietly pays his respects. He then contacts his friend and informs him that he's coming to see him, with Jesse. Soon after, Mason and Jesse leave the island. Meanwhile, at MI6, Roberta and her team are shocked when they finally see Mason and realize they've mistaken him for Timur. Despite the mistake, Roberta orders Aziz to activate their nearest Tier 1 asset, a soldier codenamed Workman. Workman receives the message and immediately sets out to hunt down Mason. Meanwhile, Mason and Jesse reach a safer area. Mason spots a truck, sees that it's unlocked, and decides to get the keys. He hands Jesse a gun and tells her to keep it pointed at the ground while he goes inside the house. Mason breaks in and starts looking for the keys, but the owner's son, Callum, suddenly appears. He distracts Mason, giving his father enough time to hold Mason at gunpoint. As the man threatens him, Jesse steps in and orders him to drop the weapon and help Mason, who is injured. The man agrees. At the same time, Roberta approaches Maddie and learns that someone has tampered with Thea's code. Whenever the system detects Mason, it mistakenly identifies him as Timur. Despite this, Roberta manages to access Mason's files and discovers that he is one of their own. This raises a bigger question. Why would someone want them to hunt one of their own agents? Soon, they receive a call from Callum. Roberta leaves, asking Maddie to keep digging for more details about Mason. She then orders her team to find Mason and bring him in alive. Meanwhile, Steven returns home. While checking Thea, he finds Mason's file and learns that Workman is already hunting him. Steven contacts Workman and orders him to follow only his commands, and to kill Mason and Jesse on sight. Back at the house, the owner patches Mason up and hands him the truck keys. But Mason senses something is wrong. He questions Callum, who admits that he has called the police. Realizing the danger, Mason grabs Jesse and tells her to stay low. Soon, the police surround the house. Despite being warned, the owner opens the door and is instantly shot in the head by Workman. Mason protects Callum and fights his way through the officers, moving back inside. He takes them down one by one and eventually manages to get hold of a police car. Roberta panics as she watches the situation spiral out of control and realizes Workman is no longer responding to comms. Workman spots Mason and Jesse escaping and immediately gives chase. The pursuit turns intense as Workman opens fire, but Mason outsmarts him and causes his vehicle to crash badly. Instead of finishing him off, Mason chooses to save Jesse and drives away. As Mason and Jesse switch cars, Workman slowly gets back on his feet and walks down the road. A woman stops to help him, but as the police arrive, Workman kills them without hesitation and then turns toward the woman. Roberta, now confused, contacts Steven and asks about Mason. Steven manipulates her, claiming Mason was part of a secret off-the-books operation called Black Ops and was their best soldier. He says Mason was assigned to eliminate an enemy intelligence officer, but instead, he saved him and altered the mission report before disappearing. Steven then orders Roberta to send everyone after Mason and eliminate him, but Roberta is still unsure about the truth. After that, Roberta receives a USB from Maddie. It reveals that Mason was assigned to extract information from an Iranian scientist. After completing the mission, instead of protecting the scientist, Mason was ordered to kill him, but Mason refused. Roberta finally begins to understand the truth, but Steven is closely watching her every move. Meanwhile, Mason and Jesse switch cars and enter a town. Mason notices the cameras and warns Jesse to stay cautious. Still, a camera inside a parked car captures their faces. Steven sees the alert, but also notices that the data is being erased. He quickly retrieves the coordinates and sends them to Workman. Mason then meets his friend, Arthur, who is surprised to see Jesse with him. Arthur takes them to his home. As Jesse steps into his workshop, Mason sends her to grab something to drink while they talk. Mason explains that he wants a safe way out for Jesse and asks how he was tracked. Arthur logs into Thea and reveals that he was the one who created it. As he checks the system, he realizes something shocking. When Mason wanted to disappear, he had replaced his identity with that of a factory worker. But now, someone has changed it again, labeling him as a high-value terrorist. Mason immediately understands it's Steven's doing. As Mason talks about keeping Jesse safe, she secretly overhears everything. When Mason asks Arthur to let Jesse stay with him, Arthur refuses. When Mason demands to know why, Jesse steps in and reveals the truth. Arthur has cancer. Mason is shaken as he learns Arthur doesn't have much time left. A moment later, Mason speaks to Jesse, but she confronts him for trying to leave her behind. Mason explains that her safety matters more than anything to him. Just as they prepare to leave, Mason hears something outside and tells Jesse to hide. Suddenly, Workman opens fire. Mason narrowly dodges the bullets and manages to disarm him. The two engage in a brutal fight. Eventually pausing for a moment. Workman spots Jesse and pulls out a knife, while Mason grabs a wooden plank. They clash again. Mason initially has the upper hand, but Workman slowly overpowers him. Seeing Mason struggle, Jesse jumps in and points a gun at Workman, but he quickly snatches it from her. Just before he can use it, Mason grabs a nail gun and injures him, giving them a chance to escape. They rush outside and jump into a car, with Arthur driving them away. Meanwhile, Steven contacts Workman and learns that Mason is still alive. Furious, he orders his men to double the guards' team, fully aware what's coming for him. They stop outside the town, and Arthur says goodbye. He hands Mason a phone, advising him to use it only when necessary. Mason and Jesse switch cars and continue their journey. Along the way, Mason explains how he will help her escape everything and start a new life. Jesse, scared of being alone, insists that Mason come with her, but he refuses, saying he needs to stop the people chasing them. Meanwhile, Maddie detects a suspicious login outside MI6 and informs Roberta. Roberta tells her to trace it immediately. Later that evening, Mason and Jesse stop outside a club. Jesse warns him about the cameras, but Mason intentionally beats up the guards and forces one of them to take him to Kamal Shah. Steven tracks Mason's location and tries to alert his team, but Maddie intercepts the signal and finds his position. Before she can inform Roberta, Roberta reveals she already knows. She quickly orders her team to move in and bring Mason and Jesse back alive. Mason meets Kamal Shah and asks for a way out for Jesse, a new identity and a fresh life in another country. Kamal refuses at first. Mason then brings up his connections to Steven and MI6, offering to expose their operations and help eliminate Kamal's enemies. Kamal believes Steven is already retired, but Mason warns him that Steven is more dangerous than ever. In exchange for Jesse's safety, Mason offers his help, and Kamal finally agrees. As they wait, Jesse again asks Mason to come with her, but he refuses, saying he has to finish his part of the deal. Jesse fears that Mason is planning to sacrifice himself and makes him promise that he will come back safely. Meanwhile, Steven grows furious and orders his team to reach the club immediately. Kamal returns and hands Mason Jesse's new identity along with 20,000 euros. He tells them they have only 30 minutes before a ship leaves for Spain. Soon, Steven's team arrives at the club. Roberta notices them and alerts her team about the rogue unit already on site. As Mason steps out with Jesse, he spots Steven's men searching for him. He quickly disarms one of them and grabs his weapon. Moving forward, Mason tells Jesse to wait while he goes ahead and silently takes down another man. They keep moving forward until they are suddenly surrounded. Thinking quickly, Mason shields Jesse and keeps the agents busy in a fierce shootout. He takes down one of them, but soon runs out of bullets. As they continue to run, Mason is forced into another fight. This time, he gets stabbed in the back. Seeing Mason in pain, Jesse jumps in to protect him, but ends up getting hurt herself. Enraged, Mason loses control and brutally takes down the attackers. As more men rush in, Mason tries to hide, but the agents manage to grab Jesse and drag her away. Mason quickly contacts Arthur, who is monitoring the chaos. Arthur informs him that Jesse is being loaded into a transit van and guides Mason to its location. As Mason steps out, Roberta spots him, and her team arrives shortly after. They try to stop him, but Mason effortlessly takes them all down within seconds. He then turns his attention to Steven's team and fights through them, eliminating every last one of them. Finally, Mason reaches the van and rescues Jesse. She rushes into his arms, holding him tightly as she breaks down in tears. Mason then spots workmen arriving and quickly steals a bike to escape. He and Jesse race toward the dock, where they see a boat coming to pick her up. Jesse panics again and begs Mason to come with her. She doesn't want him to die. Mason gently tells her that she has already saved his life and tries to calm her down. Suddenly, Workman shows up and opens fire. Mason pushes Jesse toward the boat and fires back. They keep shooting until both of them run out of bullets. With no other choice, they engage in hand-to-hand combat. Mason clearly has the upper hand, as Workman struggles to keep up. Mason knocks him down and grabs an iron chain, while Workman picks up a metal pole. They clash again. This time, Workman still fails to do any real damage, but manages to choke Mason for a moment. Mason struggles, but eventually breaks free. He then grabs the rod and snaps Workman's arm. Finally, Mason delivers a powerful blow to his head, knocking him out for good. The next morning, Steven looks out of his window and finds his guards dead. As he turns around, he sees Mason standing right behind him. Steven tries to manipulate him, offering him a chance to rebuild their secret operation and make black kites powerful again. But Mason doesn't listen. He kills him. A few days later, Jessie is seen at a restaurant in Spain, while MI6 secretly monitors her, hoping to track Mason. Aziz suggests to Roberta that they should move in, but she refuses, ordering her team to keep watching Jessie closely. As Roberta turns away, the camera slowly tilts upward, and she seems certain that Mason is nearby. Meanwhile, Jessie receives a package. Mason watches from a distance as she opens it and smiles. Inside, she finds a black queen, a symbol of the bond they have built. She looks around but doesn't see Mason. Still, she smiles, relieved to know that her guardian angel is alive. And with that, the movie comes to an end.